Hey everyone, this is Nicholas Peter. This is just going to be a quick little video. I wanted to show this website. It's called S.P.I.C.E.ac.uk. And I forgot exactly where I heard about this. It might have been the YouTube channel SGT Report a while ago. But I've never made a thorough look into it besides maybe the first page. But it's SPICE, so it's Stratospheric Particle Injection for Climate Engineering. So for anybody that you know that says that geoengineering is not real, it's a big conspiracy theory, this simple site, not even a long web address or anything like that, very simple, spice.ac.uk. I'm going to have it in the description, obviously. But it's talking about investigating the feasibility, risk, and governance associated with solar radiation management. So SPICE is an EPSRC, NERC, and STFC co-funded 3.5-year collaboration between the University of Bristol, University of Cambridge, University of Oxford, and the University of Edinburgh, which began in October 2010. The SPICE project is investigating the effectiveness of solar radiation management. SRM involves offsetting the effects of greenhouse gases increases by causing the Earth to absorb less radiation from the sun. So see how that will affect some plants. So what are the aims? So that top part is just a repeat. It aims to address the 3 grand challenges of solar radiation management. How much of what needs to be injected where into the atmosphere to safely manage the climate system? How do we deliver it there? What are the likely impacts? So SPICE is inspired by volcanic eruptions which emit sulfate particles into the stratosphere, temporarily lowering globally average surface temperatures. However, there are concerns about mimicking this natural process. There could be a substantial regional impact on temperatures, rainfall, and other aspects of climate. There are also uncertainties concerning timescales, e.g., how rapidly injection might act, how quickly it could be turned off, whether climate responds differently to continued injection as opposed to a large sporadic volcanic eruption. So it has 3 parts. One is evaluating candidate particles, aiming to understand the ways light and heat radiation interact with aerosol particles. Number 2 is delivery systems, hoping to discover how best to deliver particles into the stratosphere. Number 3 is climate and environmental modeling, determining what could happen if we were to use the chosen particles and delivery system. The output of this project will inform decision makers and stakeholders about the feasibility of this technique and any environmental or social impacts it might have. So these are not small-time people right here. University of Oxford, Cambridge, Bristol, Edinburgh, funded by EPSRC, and then the National Environment Research Council. So that's the NERC, and then the Science and Technologies Facility Council. So more about the project. Solar radiation management uses stratospheric aerosols could potentially prevent the worst effects of anthropogenic global warming. The inspiration for this type of geoengineering technique is the observed natural behavior of volcanoes, which can inject significant quantities of particles into the stratosphere, having an overall cooling effect on global temperatures. SPICE is looking at a relatively new technology, and because of this, the project team are undertaking a newly emerging and constantly developing responsible innovation approach. Stakeholder perceptions and interaction are also crucially important to the project team because SPICE is investigating something that could potentially affect everyone on the planet. So they're trying to mimic something that's natural. Almost like GMOs. They're trying to mimic what's natural by not doing what's natural. So what is geoengineering? Geoengineering has been defined by the Royal Society 2009 as the deliberate large-scale manipulation of the planetary environment to counteract anthropogenic climate change. One category of geoengineering tactic is solar radiation management. in which one attempts to control global temperatures via altering the global energy flux. So altering the natural global energy flux, either by reducing shortwave isolation or increasing the outgoing long-wave component. Aerosols injected into the stratosphere is the SRM technique, which has been identified as potentially the most affordable and effective option for reducing incident shortwave radiation by the Royal Society in 2009. So the most affordable too. So it's almost like with farming or something, like they do it the most cheaply they can, and that's just the way it is. Trying to penny pinch. Could we need solar radiation management? The most recent Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report, the IPCC in 2007, depicts a rapidly warming Earth's surface, a trend that will continue for decades due to anthropogenic emissions of greenhouse gases and aerosols. So they're going to spray aerosols into the sky to battle the emissions of greenhouse gases and aerosols. That's weird. That's kind of confusing. To avoid the impacts of dangerous future climate change, which may involve rapid sea ice contraction, sea level rise, extreme weather patterns, and food shortages, to name a few, the scientific consensus calls for a significant global reduction in greenhouse gas emissions during this half of the century. Despite this, international political and societal response to mitigation has been poor. I wonder why. And I wonder why they want to do this. So there's that. Let's do the evaluating candidate particles. Finding the perfect particle. This section of the S.P.I.C.E project is aiming to discover whether any particle other than sulfate is ideally suited for injection into the stratosphere for the purpose of reducing global temperature while minimizing unwanted side effects. So they're saying that it's very likely there will be unwanted side effects. This phenomenon has been observed following major volcanic eruptions, e.g. Mount Pinatubo in 1991. If successful, this might temporarily buy time to reduce carbon emissions and potentially prevent the worst effects of human-induced global warming. If successful, this might temporarily buy time. Okay, they already said that. So the particles S.P.I.C.E is looking at is as follows. So sulfate, sulfuric acid, sulfur dioxide, titania again, but I guess a different type, silicon carbide, diamond, dust, either Arizona test dust of NX illite, calcium carbonate, alumina, silica, zinc oxide. Any particle's action is governed by the following characteristics: the size, the surface properties, the chemical composition, and refraction index. An ideal particle would be highly reflective of sunlight, not too absorptive at longer terrestrial wavelengths, little or no influence on the reactive chemistry of the stratosphere. Other key factors: lifetime of the particle in the stratosphere, effects on human health, supply manufacture costs. The other key factors. So the first one, an ideal particle would have maybe no ill effect on human health. Maybe that should be the first thing that they think about, is the effect on human health. To better understand the optical and chemical characteristics of the candidate particles, we are using the following techniques: AFT-CIMS, aerosol flow tube chemical ionization mass spectrometer; PFTR-CIMS, plug flow tubular reactor chemical ionization mass spectrometer; AFT-OA, aerosol flow tube ozone analyzer; coated wall flow tube dust aerosol generator; laser tweezers, laser beam trap; Raman spectroscopy. Work is being undertaken at the molecular spectroscopy. God, that's a hard one. Spectroscopy facility (MSF) and the Central Laser Facility (CLF) at the Rutherford Appleton Laboratory. RAL, as well as at Bristol, Oxford, and Cambridge universities. Let's look at some facts, because I want you guys to at least be able to look into this yourself a little bit more. Are you frequently asked questions? I'm going to look at this one. Are you playing God? If geoengineering would be done for real at a global... so they're under the presumption that it hasn't happened yet, that geoengineering hasn't happened. So with this answer, they're giving the impression that it has not happened yet. If geoengineering were to be done for real at a global scale, then humans would be deliberately trying to engineer their planetary climate. There are arguments both for and against this. However, our feasibility research will not involve doing any actual geoengineering and will not have any long-lasting global impact on climate. The science in S.P.I.C.E is being undertaken under the auspices of the Research Councils UK and with complete transparency. The project is following newly designed responsible innovation protocols which should more actively engage both the public and other stakeholders. Isn't this the beginning of a slippery slope? So let's look at that one. We acknowledge the danger of technological lock-in and understand that the project must be careful to be objective. It is not the intention of those working on the project to begin a process whereby other viable technologies are discounted. We are simply working hard to understand this particular technology, stratospheric aerosols, in order to inform decision makers and stakeholders. Research is currently being undertaken around the world into many different types of geoengineering, just as is research into reducing emissions and alternative technologies. Lessons have been learned from the past about keeping an open mind and not overcommitting to one emerging technology before adequate feasibility and ethical groundwork is in place. S.P.I.C.E is attempting to inform this process. So it's... So at the very... Because most people don't even think that it's a real thing whatsoever. But there are really big universities, and also there's the head of the CIA. There's a video on YouTube. I'm sure I can find it within a second. Head of CIA, Geoengineering. So, he's speaking at the Council on Foreign Relations, and if you don't know who they are, I would definitely recommend looking into them a little bit more. I still have a lot more to do. But they are part of the Round Council. I have a lot more to learn about them. But I know that they are the main players in terms of our foreign policy, and they definitely want to have a world government for sure. I'm going to have this linked. I'm also going to have maybe the whole thing. I'm going to have the whole video linked as well. So the little clip, and then I'm going to have this one, the whole video, where he talks more about it. And also, if you wanted to look really quick, owning the weather. Government document. And this is not an old document, or this is an old document. Weather as a force multiplier. Owning the weather in 2025. This is August 1996. So that's not too old. And they talk about using it for weather warfare. Introduction. Why would we want to mess with the weather? What do you mean by weather modification? So this has been going on for a long, long time. And they have a bunch of... I've read some of this. But they talk about using it for weather manipulation for... wartime, like only using it against the enemy. So like drowning them out so they can't use their planes and stuff. I'll also have this document linked up. It's 52 pages. It's got a lot of information in it. But yeah, that's just gonna be a quick video. I'm gonna have all this stuff linked so we can do a little bit more digging. Please feel free to give me some comments and say maybe something that you found that was super interesting. I would love to hear from you guys. I'd love to have a discussion with you guys, because I'm not an authority whatsoever. I'm in the same boat as you guys. I'm just trying to learn as best I can. There's so many things to learn, and sometimes we can think that there's so little time, but there is a lot of time. We just got to make sure we try to put our focus into some of these things, like investing it, you know, because time is a currency. That's why we're spending time or investing time into things. And so putting it into things that are practical, that can really open people's eyes. Because when I first started hearing about geoengineering and seeing it and seeing some information, it blew my mind. Like I didn't even know what to think. Like I remember going to work that day or the day after, and I was just like in shock. I was just like, wow. I'm looking up in the sky, and it just, everything was clicking. I finally could see it. I never noticed it before in my entire life. So it's very interesting. And obviously these people are putting it under the impression that it hasn't happened yet. But there's a lot of information that's showing that it's already being done. So we just got to look into it more. Feel free to post any links that you guys have. I would totally look into them myself. I'll even make a video looking into them 100%. So I really appreciate you guys watching, and I hope you guys have a great weekend.